What's going on, folks? Granison Shines here with Seduire International, and welcome to another episode of the Silver Tongue Broadcast at Seduire International Production. This is our podcast platform where we talk about specific subject matter. This week, we're going to continue our 11-part series. We're on part number 8. It's called the Leadership Path, the essence of excellence and successful leadership. Today we're going to be talking about the heart. And I'll show you the graphic here later on. I have with me, though, as always, my business partner and coach extraordinaire.
Well, thank you for that grandeur introduction. Thank you, Granison.
All right. You're welcome.
From the heart, leadership from the heart, I have a quote for you. True leadership is not defined by power or authority, but by the courage to lead with the heart. It is in the depths of compassion, empathy, and understanding that a leader forges connections, inspires greatness, and guides others towards a brighter future.
That is a very, very powerful quote. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Before we get into the subject matter, though, make sure that you share this podcast wherever you're listening to it. Why? Because our entire goal is to reach all the way to the other side of the world, get this information over to other leaders like yourself, give it to those emerging leaders, get to those senior leaders. And we want to make sure that all the information that we give during these sessions is information you can put to use right after the broadcast. So take out a pen, get your paper, get your mobile device, whatever it is, take some notes because we have some information going to share with you. This is one of the more essential sessions that we're going to be talking about the heart and leadership, which a lot of people don't talk about. They may mention it, but they don't dive into it like we're going to dive into it today. So that's what I want to make sure you guys do. So grab pen, paper. Let's take some copious notes.
And we would like for you to subscribe our YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell while you are there. I didn't hit the bell, Granison. What happened to the bell?
I did hit the bell. You want it again? There you go.
There, I want it this time. There you go. We are also on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Stitcher, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts also. While on YouTube, where we are on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, look us up as Seduire International.
Yep, absolutely right. And we'll be taking the long form video content like we make here, and we'll be making these shorter 9x16 shorts, reels, and TikTok videos so that you can also get the quick little snappy little sound bites that you can take and utilize right away. We also have some classes that are coming up, but before I talk about the classes that Yasmin is going to be holding, I'll be holding, we want to make sure that we accentuate our service. Our core services is the coaching. We make sure that we coach emerging leaders all the way to senior leaders. We also train. We also supplement the training with the coaching as part of our methodologies to make sure that all the concepts and tools and tips that we talk about are extremely embedded in your mindset. And then finally, the consulting piece of it as well, making sure that we take you through the different plans that we have. The leadership development plan for those emerging leaders, map out a strategic plan on how they're going to get to their goals of being the formidable leader that they're supposed to be. We also have a communication plan, a communication and accountability plan. Those two are also integrated together. If you are a leader, how do you take your message from the helm, the top of your organization, and permeate it all the way down through all the different layers, all the way to the specialist level of the organization? Well, that's all about strategy. And that's what the communication plan and the accountability plans for. The accountability plan is a little bit deeper dive, though, because that way we get into what makes accountability work, which also evolves the culture. So if you're talking about evolving your culture to a level where you have these high level ideas of being extremely accountable, what you need to have high performing teams, that's what that one's all about. We also have the DEI plan. So if you have a diversity, equity, and inclusion plan, not just the training and coaching, but a whole entire plan We also work with organizations to do that. And finally, the BPM or BPO, which is the business process management, business process optimization. How do we take processes in the organization, refine them so that they have a higher productivity yield and they're also more efficient, which also equals more profitability. So those are our services. As I mentioned, the classes that we have coming up, and we have some future dates coming up. We're in the process of making sure that we give you fantastic information. Yasmin is going to be talking about critical thinking and strategic thinking. So we're going to do just a free overall concept class that you can attend for free, and then buy into the program that she's going to be talking about. We're going to take smaller classes in this one too. So only up to 5. We may have to do multiple classes, but 5, maybe 10. 5 is a good sweet spot because that's how we coach right now in our groups, to make sure we get all the interaction and make sure the skill set is firmly embedded in your mindset. I personally will be talking about assertiveness, one of the most prominent and important skill sets that a leader can have. And in fact, before I roll that out, I'm going to be doing a 10-part video series on the 10 signs that you will recognize, that you will say, hey, you know what? It connotes that you need more assertive training. Assertive training is a real thing. Look it up. You don't have to believe me, but go look it up. Do your research. But it's a very formidable skill set, and it's very taxing, though. So word of warning beforehand, this is a very, very highly intense class, okay? So if you don't have the stomach for it, we don't want you in the program. It's one of those. It's one of those.
Granison, you're scaring people.
Well, hey, leadership isn't easy, so we just have to give it the way it comes, right? We have some real role play scenarios. When I say real, I mean we're going to be role playing. That's extremely important. We're going to do video presentation, all these other things that really challenge your confidence and challenge your assertiveness. But it's all about becoming this assertive leader. 12 weeks of training. 12 weeks of coaching and training, right? 12 weeks of coaching. Coach and do methodology for both of these. We coach 1 week, you go out, you have the whole entire week to come about and test and experiment with that particular skill set, and then add it to your leadership style. So it's pretty intense, though. I want to warn you. Yasmin's intense too, but mine's going to get really, I know what I've got going for you. It's going to be.
As you're talking about intense, I can see those tasers on both sides.
Right, exactly. Right here on their head, right here on the temples, and just shock it right into you. It'll be pretty intense, but it won't be that intense. No physical harm, we promise you that. So if you want to send us an email, send it to info@seduireinternational.com, info@seduire, SEDUIREINTL.com. We answer all of the questions that come about. We get a plethora of them. And if you have anything, you can reach out to us directly if you know our email address. I won't give that out right here, but the info one, I will get it. Yasmin will get it. Someone in our organization will get it. And we'll make sure that we answer you as well. All right, cool. There you have it. Anything else you want to mention, Yasmin?
No, you're snapping a lot today.
Snapping. I'm on it today. I'm on it.
I know. I can tell.
Absolutely.
All right.
So now we'll talk about the content. We're going to dive into the eighth part, the leadership path, the essence of excellence in leadership, talking about the heart. Yes, that thing right there. The proverbial heart, not the actual physical organization, or it's the organism or the organ that you have that pumps the blood. But when we talk about leadership, and we ask the question, what do we mean by the heart when it comes to leadership? Well, there was an old commercial back in the 70s that used to say that at the end of the commercial, it used to say, the mind is a terrible thing to waste. I'm going to add on to that. I'm going to say the heart can be a complex and tricky place. Because the heart, we start talking about the heart. In fact, let me show you the graphic right now. Here's the graphic that we've been showing you for the past 7 sessions or 7 episodes for this graphic. Right now, we're talking about this one right up here at the apex of this triangle, talking about the heart. It's the smaller portion of it, but most people never get there. Most people never lead from the heart. A lot of times we like to manage from the numbers. We like to manage from the performance aspect of things. But when you start talking to and dealing with people, you really have to adhere to the heart. Now, all these other sections, as you see within the color spectrum that you see internally within the triangle, we did all 7 parts going up to human nature. Now we're at the purple aspect of this, the apex, the heart, the heart, the heart, the heart. Now, the heart is, I say it's tricky because There are a lot of times that people try to manipulate and pull on the heartstrings. And you have to be a very, very discerning leader. And you have to have the skill set, the discernment skill set beforehand. You have to listen to intuition, but you also have to couple it and interlace it with the knowledge, the wisdom, and insight that you have so that your heart doesn't get played. It's a landmine. Yasmin's laughing. It's a landmine to be utilized strategically. And if it's manipulated in the wrong way, and we've seen this, Yasmin, you can attest to it. We've seen this at times when people are just pulling on the heartstrings for their manipulation, to serve for self-serving purposes.
Yeah.
And this is where the leader has to be very adept in her skill set, has to be attentive in listening and making sure the observation skills are turned on, because if you are not, then you can be very much so swayed, swindled, bamboozled, tricked into capitulating to someone else's demands, and you don't even know it. That's how tricky this can be.
Yeah.
So the heart is one of these, again, it's not the physical organ that you have in your body, but this is the part of you that has the compassion, the empathy, the sympathy part of leadership that you need in order to have that softer part of you as a leader. It doesn't matter how stern you are. If you have the heart, you can still be assertive, but you also have that compassion. You have the passion, the compassion, the passion, the sympathy, the empathy in order to move your agenda forward for you, not just for you, but also for whoever you're dealing with and the organization, the people that you serve.
And you know, Granison, one of my bosses, my mentors, he told me one time that you have to learn when to open the doors to your heart and when to close them shut.
Right.
And when to keep them slightly ajar. So there is a two-way street. And that always stayed with me. And I want to reiterate the quote that I quoted earlier. True leadership is not defined by the power of authority.
Right.
People will shoot orders here and there, but by the courage to lead with the heart. How many people have the courage to lead with the heart? Because it's very tough, like Granison said, it's a very tricky place to lead from. And if you don't know how to lead from the heart, you can be taken advantage of. It is in the depths of compassion, empathy, and understanding that a leader forges the connection, inspires greatness, and guides others towards a brighter future. So it's with the heart that you make connections, not by throwing and demanding things and throwing orders.
Well stated.
That compassion and that empathy. So having said that, Granison, my first question to you is, why should, though I've explained a little bit, I want you to go into detail, why should the leader lead with his or her heart?
Very good question. I'm going to add to what you said previously about, it goes in with the quote. We have this other adage that when people wear their heart on their sleeve, you know what that means, right? It means that the person is very, very sensitive, have easy access to someone's emotions. So why should a leader lead from his heart? Because the leader always wants to lead from a place of authenticity. Human nature is that most of us, there are some people who have some disabilities in their mindset that allows us to make connections with people, to be authentic, to show compassion, to show empathy, to show sympathy. And so a leader should lead from his heart in terms of, how is this going to be beneficial, not just for me personally, but also for the other person? Our innate thought process is mainly selfish, but we have to extend to the second level of thinking, which is the altruistic aspect. And this is where the heart comes into play. We start thinking about the third level of thinking when we start talking about in our modalities. I'm naming one of the modalities, 5 levels of thinking. We start talking about the expressive level, which is the third level. That is the thought on the empathetic and sympathetic thinking as a leader. And it starts with the head, or it starts with the feeling of the heart and the thing that you may want to desire and feel and transmit to the other person. Then it's all about structuring what it is you're about to communicate before you release it. Because some things said that could be said from the heart may be a bit intrusive. Sometimes it may make people uncomfortable. So we have to wrap it around some ideas of being very direct, but also making sure that we have the empathy putting ourselves in the other person's shoes when we're actually leading from the heart as well. So that's why leaders lead from the heart.
Yeah, and we, I don't know, we talked about this, uniting people for a common purpose.
Yes.
You know, when you leading with the heart, you unite people together, and the warmth. People will feel the warmth of a leader that leads with the heart.
Yes, true.
And the one that doesn't, you can feel that ice as well.
Yeah, true. Very cold, right?
Yeah, cold leaders, and I can name a few right now, you know, but this is not a political show. But anyway, leading with the heart, uniting people for a common purpose, solidifying relationships. People
Yeah.
come together and then become high-performing teams because they are closer in bond due to that warmth.
Yeah. And we have people that we work with that come into the program, they're very cold, very calloused, and we have to, over time, this is not automatic and it's not a quick fix, is over time we have to allow them to have this safe place so they can start opening up and start leading people from the heart, because these are the people who come across as taskmasters first, because they come in and they're cracking the whip. It's okay, there's a point in time when they crack the whip, but there's also, in order to balance out the scales, and the pendulum swings both ways, you have to be able to sit down, chat with someone from the heart, and communicate that way. And be very distinct about what you're saying there. Yes, you want to interject with something?
No. That was going to lead into my next question,
No.
which was, what's the negative side of using the heart in leadership?
Well, the negative side is one that's easily manipulated. The heart can be easily manipulated, especially by people who are very, very charismatic. So the more charismatic person you're talking to, the more they're going to pull, the more they can have the ability to pull on your heartstrings. This is where the discernment comes into play. So you have to make sure that from the negative side, it's easily manipulated. And once it's easily manipulated, then it also seeps into the emotions. That's the really powerful part of a hearing, if you do this right, you being the leader and attaching your thoughts and intents to someone's heart, because it gets to their emotions, which also can be a driving factor. But the driving factor can be either positive or negative. And so think about it reciprocated coming towards you as well. So someone can tap into your heart and really cause this wave of emotions that can get you outside of your leadership frame. Let me repeat that again. It can get you outside of your leadership frame, because when you have this leadership mindset, and it's a continuous holding of a frame that you never break. And it takes a lot of energy. If you go back to the graphic here, you can see on the outside of this particular graphic, we have energy here right on the left side. It takes a lot of energy to be not only charismatic, but also caring, but also not to be manipulated, and to guard your heart. I mean, they have all these quotations about the heart. Guard your heart. Don't wear your heart on your sleeve, and make all these things that we talk about. So it's hard to protect at times. So we have to be very diligent, very strategic, and make sure, like Yasmin said, you can leave the little gap, but don't open it so wide to where it takes you a longer time to shut it, and someone's already in there pulling on the heartstring.
Yes,
right?
it's an art. Leading with the heart is an art. Hey,
Yes.
that's a good quote.
There you go. Write that one down.
And what I was going to also share, what you alluded to earlier on, was that when you're not warm, or when you're not leading with the heart, then you are, of course, not compassionate. You're leading with your heart shut. I was not always warm and fuzzy leader, really. Especially
no, go ahead.
Especially when I became a new multi-unit leader. It was get the job done. I don't have time to waste. I don't need to be compassionate, because compassion is weakness.
Yeah.
That was my way of thinking. Crack the whip, get the job done, and you know what? Don't have time for small talk and all that. And what happened was that, I got the job done, but people were not happy.
With you personally.
Yes, people work for people.
Yeah.
And my boss pulled me aside one day. He says, you know, you're doing a great job, but I want you to work on something, compassion. I said, what the heck is that?
What
What the heck is compassion?
are you doing? Who uses that nowadays, right? That kind of
He said, be a little gentler, a little calmer. Listen
thing.
to people. Hear what they're saying. Stop and smell the roses. I'm like, but I got places to go. I got things to do. He said, have others do it for you. Let the magic work for itself. Lead with your heart, and people will do whatever you want
And
because
that's a very strong factor. Yeah.
they love you and they trust you. And like the saying goes, people work for people, they don't work for companies. So I just wanted to add that compassion goes long ways, and it becomes easier as you become a compassionate leader instead of the ice queen or king.
Yeah. And especially for the emerging leaders, because I remember when I first got into leadership too, it was all about performance, right? You have this mindset that I'm going to do well, and I'm going to lead these people. And as you mature, then that's when you start tapping into the heart. That's why we had to have it at the top, because all the time you're building these foundational principles, you're learning how to get your feet wet in the right places, you learn how to balance, you learn how to stand on your own 2 feet per se. But you don't get to the heart portion of it until you mature as a leader.
Yes.
However, people that I also see in senior leadership, they are senior in their tenure of leadership, but not senior in the implementation of leadership. Meaning that they haven't ascended to leading from the heart yet, because you can lead and manage people from the heart, but also have this very high performance going on as well. And those two never they're always intertwined, they always intersect, they're never separate.
They work together. They absolutely work together. So my next question, you walk right into it, was when a leader uses his or her heart in leadership, what are its effects?
Point number one, the main thing is that centered around relationships are these emotional connections. Leadership, the difference between a leader and an influencer is the relationship, that emotional connection. The influencer might not have the ability to touch someone at mass scale at the heart level. There's a lot going on there. You can't really interact, so you don't really know how the person's thinking. You can hear what they say on one side, but you don't have that back and forth to cultivate a relationship. With a leader, there's a relationship. Now I have the back and forth. You hear how I think, I hear how you think. We have nonverbal communication, everything else that's accentuated in our conversations. And so you have this very strong emotional connection. So leaders who lead from the heart are very emotionally connected to their team members. And this is how you start getting the high performing teams. In fact, one of the 6 components is a solid or developing solid relationships. So that's one thing. 2, you have this, you lead from this place of authenticity, which cultivates trust and credibility at the same time. Being authentic in how you communicate and how you deal with people, how you are expressive thinking, how you're expressing yourself to the other person takes a bit of vulnerability, but at the same time, it also takes you being very cognizant of how vulnerable you are being, so that you can quickly recuperate and shut the door if someone decides they don't want to be manipulative at that instance and really try to get in, pull the heartstrings.
You know, I'm glad you said that, because I was taking notes as you were talking. Leading from the heart doesn't mean that you will not discipline someone.
True.
Just like children, you love your kids.
Exactly the opposite happens. Yep.
But when they do something wrong, they're disciplined as well. If someone is not performing, no matter how close you are to them, how much attachment you have as a leader, you will still have to learn that art. I said leading with the heart is an art. That art of discipline, stopping them in the track and redirecting them, pivot, redirect. You have to do that as a leader. You have big shoes to fill. It's not easy to open your heart and then know when to shut. Open, shut, leave it up slightly open. It is definitely an art.
It is definitely an art. Yeah. And it's a very strategic art that you should, when I say you, whoever's listening to this, you should really focus on what Yasmin just said, because you do have to be open and have this point of vulnerability at times. There will be times where you have to share your stories of where you made your mistakes and have someone tap into that. Then when they start talking and you see that it might be going a different way, especially if you're managing conflict or something like that, and there's a selfish motivation point to their outcome, you want to be able to guard your heart then and make the logical, more rational, analytical decision than at the time too. And there are times when the heart and the head, they're warring. I mean, they have conflict, right? You want to do something like this, you feel this from the heart, but then logic and experience and dealing with this person or people says otherwise. But you have your intent coming from the heart. That's the right way, but you have to make a quote tough decision at times in order to make sure that you go down the right path so that the outcome that you want is desirable for both parties, not just you, for both parties, because you can go the opposite way too and pull the other person's heartstrings.
And you might have to fire someone also.
Sure. Yeah.
If the performance is not there,
yeah.
Leadership with the heart doesn't mean that, oh, he has kids and he has family. Yes. If you're a good leader, you've led them the right way. You have talked about performance and you give them feedback.
Try to develop them.
Yeah. They will know. They will know the minute you call them in to make it the final day, what they did right and what they did wrong, and more wrong than right. And they will understand.
And that's the tough thing about terminating someone is it always or oftentimes pulls on the heartstrings, especially if that person is good at being a genuine person, but not just good at doing that particular role, and they don't get it, right? I had to let a nice guy go one time, a very, very nice guy. And talking about my personal experience, I acquired him when this other corporate company bought the company I was with, and I acquired him as a team member, and I brought some other team members with me. And he was a good dude, very nice dude. But it pulled on my heartstrings to let him go. But he just couldn't grasp some of the things and the concepts in the system that needed for the proper job performance. And there wasn't another place, because I did look could I move him some other place first before letting him go, and ultimately had to make the decision. That pulled on my heartstring for a bit. I mean, it took me just to feel good about it a couple of days just to get back into good swing, right? Yeah, it was a tough decision.
The first time I have let go of a lot of good people. And the thing is, they're good people. As a person, they're a good person,
right,
but they're not the right fit for that job or that company. And as a leader, you have to identify that, and they need to know that. When you set expectations, they should know the expectations and their responsibilities, and you should hold them accountable.
Yeah.
With the heart. All with the heart. And when it doesn't happen, when you give them feedback on top of feedback, there is got to be a time that feedback is going to run into that wall, the dead end.
Then you got to make a decision.
Yes, you got to make a decision.
Yep.
And it's got to be very respectful.
Yeah.
And got to part ways respectfully, and they'll understand. Yeah, they will know, like I said, that this is not the right fit for me. You're a great boss, but I know what you demand I can't do, and I can't give you what you are expecting. So out of respect for you, they will understand. Either they'll quit or you'll have to respectfully let them go.
One of the other final points I want to make with this, because this is extremely important for you who are listening to this, is that when you lead with the heart, one of the better outcomes and effects of this is having this positive culture in your organization. Here's the kicker, though. It has to come from the top. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't come from the top, that leader, whatever culture that leader is putting out there, either by default or strategically, and if it's negative, it's going to infect all other levels of the organization. The only power that you'll have is to manage your department in a certain way. And there will be times when it's going to be very, very tough because you're going to have to protect your people and your department in a certain way, especially if the culture is not cultivated to be have this open thought process and leading from the heart. Now, I'm not saying that performance isn't there, but I would tell you that the positive culture, organizations that have this positive culture, the leader at the helm, the person who is solely responsible, mainly responsible for permeating the culture, or I should say infecting his first level subordinates or his or her first level subordinates, which then goes into the different departments from the other CXOs down to the VPs or senior VPs, down to the different departments. The leader at the top has the biggest job in order to start cultivating a positive culture that fosters engagement, that fosters guidance, that fosters mentoring, coaching, and communicating, leading from the heart. If not, it'll be a futile fight in order to have that pushed up to subordinates. Not going to happen. The power that you have in that instance, it may be uncomfortable for you, but just to manage your group as that particular silo, permeate a certain culture. And this is where Yasmin was talking about people work for people, because then they're going to follow your lead. That whole aspect of the game we used to play when we were little kids. Follow the leader. Remember, I don't know if you guys played it where you were, but we played it. It's ours, Pakistan, but we played it a lot here. And this is how kids start to understand how to follow other people and start to, because of human nature in that aspect. The positive culture is extremely important. I just want to accentuate that a little bit. What do you have to say about fostering a positive culture when leading with the heart?
Well, same thing. Like I said, it fosters not only trust, loyalty, sense of belonging, and in turn, it enhances collaboration and performance.
Sure. Yeah. And if we talk about human nature, people want to be heard. So if you're leading from the heart, you're going to have the opportunity to make sure that your people are heard. They want to feel valued. So having that value, feeling that they matter in the organization by giving them the empowering aspect of doing certain things for their level of authority as well. And also connoting to them that, hey, you need to also lead from the heart, but also lead from a performance management standpoint.
Yeah.
Cultivating the relationships.
Absolutely.
Right. That whole aspect of making sure that all of your team members are infected with this positive thought process of feeling valued. They also want to feel acknowledged, giving them the knowledge, giving them the proverbial slap on the back and the proverbial fist bump by acknowledging out in the open when there's a thing done right, especially continuously. And but also having to say again,
help each other too, collaboration, helping each other.
Collaboration. Yes. Yeah. People want to have these feelings. Go ahead. What are you going to say?
Another effect, the first one was emotional connection. Another effect from leading from the heart is authenticity and trust. What can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, on this authenticity, we talk about the 5 parts of the authentic self, which also permeates the heart aspect of this thing, meaning that the mind, the will, the imagination, the emotions, and the intellect. When you start talking from the heart, you tap into someone's mind in a positive way, their will, you can then bend their will, right? You can, when I say bend their will, they're going to make the decision to actually bend their will. You're just influencing it. You have the imagination. People start to utilize the imagination in a more constructive and the proper way to solve problems, if they're critically thinking about situations, those sorts of aspects as well. People also start having their emotions in check as well, because you're going to help them manage their emotions, but you're also going to communicate to them with all the authenticity of the things that doesn't make the emotions flare up. So you may have a passion, or you may have this passion that you talk with and you're leading them, but it's not misleading, or it's not derogatory, and or being some sort of negative manner in that fact. But then also from an intellectual standpoint, giving them the proper guidance and leading and education and things that they need in order to foster true leadership. You're going to make sure that you help them understand that. All of that builds trust. Mm-hmm. when done right, all of that builds trust. And then you get to this point where you leaving, they want to follow you, right? Because they know you, they like you, they trust you, they know your heart intent on how you do things. They know that this is a stand-up guy or stand-up lady, and however you identify yourself, whatever it may be, it's going to be very advantageous. Again, not just for you, not just for them either, from an altruistic standpoint, but for also the people that you're serving, and that's what it's all about. So talking about that serving gets into this other point of servant leadership. A lot of times with leadership, we think about how we want people to do things for us, which is fine. That's actually the right way to think about it. At the same time, balance. We're all supposed to be serving them in the way that allows them to be empowered, to be resourceful, to provide the resources for them. We're supposed to be the provision for that, and making sure that they also understand how to manage, but not only manage, but lead, and then lead from the heart. So it has these multifaceted benefits.
Mm-hmm. Then also another effect is inspirational leadership. I just want to say a few things about that. So leaders who lead with the heart inspire and motivate others through their passion and purpose.
All right.
They have a purpose because they can feel it. They communicate compelling vision. They have a vision, and they share it with enthusiasm and commitment, and they build their team with that enthusiasm and the commitment. Anything you want to add to the inspirational leadership?
Yeah, I can add something to that, and I'll make it, condense it. Being inspiring as a leader and being inspired as a leader is the balance where we want to walk, right? So being inspirational, being the person who gives the people who we're leading this momentum to move forward, or the drive to move forward by inspiring them.
Yeah, the confidence. It gives you that shot of confidence. Yay, we can conquer the world. We can do this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where like you were talking about earlier, the word magic. That's where the magic happens, to be inspiring, and also be inspired by the people that you're leading. So you have this duality effect that you want to do well and better for them, or be the best who you can be for them, so that the end goal, the outcome, is aligned with the mission and vision of the organization as well, or even your department for that matters.
Yeah. Well said. Talk a little bit about empathy and understanding as well.
Empathy and understanding. So empathy, of course, we have to go back to the modality, 5 levels of thinking. First level of thinking is self-centered thinking. Second level of thinking is altruistic thinking. Third level of thinking is expressive thinking, thinking on the aspect of empathy and sympathy, as we were talking about earlier. Empathy, getting into the understanding of being emotionally intelligent on when to be more assertive and when to be a bit more lighthearted, for lack of a better phrase. So being not aggressive, but being assertive, being the portion of, and being assertive, you can't lead from the heart and be assertive. It doesn't have to be like this whole aggressive or passive aggressive or super soft person. When we're talking about leading from the heart. Leading from the heart is all about doing the right thing in terms of your integrity as well. Factors into that integrity piece of it. So being emotionally involved, or having the empathy aspect of things, also transitions over to these other traits of the skill set that you should have as a leader. But it's very defining in terms of how to do it. It's also very strategic. You have to be in the know, to be very, very self-aware, extremely self-aware, and extremely others aware as well. And then you also have to be extremely situationally aware, because all 3 of those has an opportunity to get to the heart and start pulling on the strings.
Mm-hmm. And it also supports individual growth and development.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You touched a little bit on servant leadership. Elaborate a little bit more why the servant leadership specifically involves the heart.
Because in order to empower others, in order to provide guidance, in order to be in a position of removing obstacles, in order to be in a position of delegating properly so that they can be successful. It takes this open aspect of providing the resources that the person needs in order to be successful. So a leader, think about a servant. A servant provides things for the person that he or she is serving. So we're in this provision state, or this provisional state of always providing for even our subordinates. Now, you may have seen this topsy-turvy. There was a book written called Servant Leadership by, I forgot what the gentleman's name was. And I read it. It's a good book. Yeah. And it's based on a lot of the principles of the Bible and leading that way. However, the servant being this providing person and establishing well-being and the proper culture, us leaders, we're supposed to be the fixers and providers of that. We have to be resourceful, or even teach them how to be resourceful when we're removed from the equation because we might not be accessible. That's being servant as a leader, or being that servant leader you're talking about.
Yeah, and it builds a culture of mutual respect and shared success.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And that's where exactly you want to go, because that shared success, if you peel the layers on your back, go back a few steps, it's all about being provisional for the people that you're serving.
Let's talk a little bit about the connection of EI, emotional intelligence, and the heart.
So the connection of emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence, again, being empathetic, that's where that idea comes from as well. So when you tap into the emotions, now the emotions and the heart intertwine like this. For those who can't see me, I got my fingers crossed. They go hand in glove. The two peas in the pod. They're Laverne and Shirley. They're the knife and fork, right? I mean, they go hand in hand all the time. So to be more emotionally involved does mean that you also have your heart centered on the opportunity. So when you're emotionally involved, you got your heart in it. Now it can go either way though. Positive emotional aspect, negative emotional aspect, to where people are very highly energetic or even being derogatory at some point, whatever, but the emotional state is not in the right way. But if we are emotionally intelligent, we can adhere to different people, different situations at different times, and still have the outcome be successful. But you have to have emotional intelligence, because you have to understand what state of mind that they're in. And you may have to pull on their heartstrings in order to calm them down so they can get into the right emotional state, so that you can provide the leadership that they need in order to be successful at that moment.
So people who lead with the heart, are they good at resolving conflicts, strategic thinking, and making sound decisions?
They have the right components. Doesn't necessarily know the skill set or that they're adept in the skill set. They do have the right component, because in order to truly see, especially conflict, and the components that you're mentioning in there, you have to be able to see where the people are emotionally and be able to tap into that. You can't drive it and or resolve it from a place of aggression or being aggressive. It does take a standpoint of, you can be assertive but not aggressive. It does take a standpoint to where you have to be able to bring them down so they can professionally resolve the situation, just taking conflict resolution for a skill set. But the person who has access to his or her heart authentically has the right component. Now it's all about learning the skill set and being adept in the skill set.
Exactly. The art.
The art of it. Yeah, exactly.
Art of it. Yes.
Yeah, you have the heart, then you have the art, like you were talking about earlier.
Yes. And last but not least, let's talk about the positive culture and engagement that it fosters.
Cool. Like I was talking about earlier on, I'm going to talk about the culture piece of it. It's a must. It's extremely essential for the leader at the helm to really understand this fact. And in fact, if he or she doesn't, and they find themselves being more of a driver cracking the whip and not really adhering to the culture of the organization, because that person is very much so responsible for how everything else transitions into the organization. Just to give you an idea, I was watching, there's a series on Netflix called Dirty Money. And in one of the episodes, they had the CEO and the COO who became the CEO of Volkswagen when they were making their TDI, their diesel engines, and they had this defeat device. Well, they were talking about the culture of the organization that was leading to be very, very deceptive in order to get their product into the marketplace. Well, they were talking about it from being from the helm of the organization as well, just to kind of give you a slight or an actual reference, making sure that the leader, if the leader is not in the right place from a heart perspective, it's going to be very, very difficult to have a positive culture in the environment, no matter what you do. And until that leader gets the slurp jerked out of his or her chain, then and really even come to a whole new brand, apologize to people, and start strategically aligning themselves for more positive outcomes, the culture will not change, and the engagement will not be there as well either. You may have some engagement, you have people dealing with each other, but the engagement may be toxic. The engagement may be conflict confronting, and these are the organizations who never get out of the storming phase. If you look at the Tuckman model, they never get out of the storming phase. They have the adjourning, they have the forming phase. They got the teams, they formed the organization, all the teams, the different departments. But then they get into this place where they get to storming and never get out of that, get to the performing stage effectively. Yeah, exactly right.
All right, that's all the questions you have. Is there anything you want to say to conclude?
Yeah, folks, just remember that we'll be putting out some information regarding the classes that Yasmin has coming up, critical thinking and strategic thinking. And I will be talking about assertiveness. And assertiveness, we'll be talking about this heart aspect of things. Remember, folks, we're talking about part 8, the leadership path, the essence of excellence and successful leadership, the heart. The next conversation we're going to be talking about is integrity. Then we're going to go to energy. Then we're going to go to acceptance. Integrity is also a big one. But making sure that you take the information that we have here and just listen to it again. Even if you have to draw the audio, you'll be able to get the audio streaming from our podcasts, like platforms like Spotify and Stitcher, Google Podcasts, iTunes. Listen to it again. I guarantee you're going to get something else out of it each time you listen to it, but it's very, very essential to understand how the heart works, okay? How the heart works. And it's all about understanding people, human nature factors kicked in, all these foundational principles that we spoke about, communication, leadership, community, all the other past 7 sections culminate up into this one section as well. Because if you have the heart permeated with all 7 of those sections, you can do very, very well as a leader. So that's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, while you were talking about, I was thinking how there is the physical aspects of the heart, and then there are emotional aspects of the heart. And last but not least, there are leadership aspects of the heart.
Leadership aspects of the heart, and that's exactly what we're talking about. Yep.
Which, like I keep saying, is an art. And once you learn that skill, that art, you will become a leader that leads with the heart.
Absolutely. Fantastic with that. Thanks for that. Folks, I'm Granison Shines here with
Yasmin Murray. It was a pleasure talking about the heart.
Absolutely. Until next time, we will be back talking about integrity. All right. Talk to you later, folks. See you. Bye.
Bye.